I'm super excited, guys. Last time we ended with Oleg, our episode on a note where he really felt, as a professional of the field, that we must have a legal counsel in the room to provide the right advice. And I'm super honored and really privileged to have both of you right now in the room, that you guys took out the time from your busy schedule. And now you both showed up, and we will have a beautiful, very, very powerful conversation. So let's begin. Irina, welcome to Olga Zakinova podcast. It is my honor to welcome you into this beautiful podcast room and to really share the knowledge and expertise and everything that you could pour from your heart to the audience and educating them with everything that you already have and know.
Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure and honor to be here.
Thank you. And Oleg, welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, whether you want it or not, this is going to be a repeat cycle because I feel like God put us to this earth to give and deliver all the knowledge that He gives us the power to give back, as we call it, Hesed, right? To those that need our services. Oleg Pinhasev, the administrator of Continental Home Care. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And let's dive deep into our conversation where we left off last time, where it is very important for the public to know and understand how it all really works. So, Irina, as a real estate broker, I shared with you when we got on our conversation originally that I personally am challenged on day-to-day operations where I do get phone calls from children, mostly children, that are dealing with their family situations where they are debating and pushing their parents off the cliff of uncomfortable decision-making and being on their own, being fully in charge of their own lifestyle, how they can really make a decision to give up their homes, maybe make a decision to go into nursing home, maybe debating of an assisted living situation. I actually have a very active client right now who is not able to climb the steps because they cannot really go up and down anymore because most of the homes are not designed in our community and our culture with elevators. They're not designed with having everything on one floor. And quite frankly, people don't prepare for it. Yeah. So let's dive deep into conversations where I start my journey, where I really witness first chance of seeing people where they become hoarders. They can't clean. They cannot do their own laundry. They cannot cook for themselves. They cannot go do the chores of getting groceries. It's all becoming a challenge. And to what degree people will procrastinate, I should say, by saying, no, leave me alone. I don't need anything. I don't need strangers in the house. Yeah. So that's what I'm dealing with, right? Yeah. So let's dive deep into conversations where it will be so fruitful and really people will hear from you as professionals. How do we maneuver such situations so we are not taking away their power? They are still in control. They still could make decisions. But it's so important that we don't lose them, God forbid, dead on the floor because there was nobody there to watch them, right? So let's dive deep. Irina, so you as professional expert, and you are the legal counsel, and many people know you from the community. What would be your piece of advice for someone who is beginning to start preparation? Yeah. First of all, where does the preparation should start? What age do you think is ideal?
Yeah, it's a great question. So my rule of thumb is always around 55 for a number of reasons. One, usually around 55, we start having kids who are older and we can trust to act as trustees. And certainly the imperative for Medicaid planning becomes more important every year, right? So 55 is a good rule of thumb because of the age of our kids. It's also an age where we're closer to retirement. So we know more or less, do we need the money out of our real estate in our pockets, or can we afford not to sell it and use that money from the sale for the rest of our lives? It's an opportunity that is the closer you are to retirement age, the closer you are to the age that an irrevocable Medicaid qualifying trust makes sense for you. And another really important reason why 55 makes sense is that if a person ends up on Medicaid, whether or not they planned for it, or if, God forbid, there's some sort of a medical emergency, 55 is the age where the state starts recovering, Medicaid Estate Recovery, which is mandatory, and we can go into that. But essentially what it means is if you own a home, you live in the house, you're 55 and older, and you have Medicaid, any kind of Medicaid, and you pass away with that home being in your name, and you're over 55, the last 10 years of your life, Medicaid recovers against your house, your property. So you need to take steps to protect it.
Yes, I want to reiterate that to our listeners. So to those that own homes at this current moment, and they are 55 years old, they absolutely have to reach out to you and have a simple consultation.
Yeah.
Everyone, Irina Yadgarov's law firm is the website yadgarovalaw.com. The phone number is 347-699-5529. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to reach out to Irina directly at her office. Please do mention that you heard this podcast, so this way we could keep track of understanding that people are getting the benefit from these conversations. And so it would lead us to the next chapter of the next episode. But for the record, Irina, you mentioned that people should get the preparation starting on the trust so they could qualify for Medicaid. And so with Medicaid, then they could qualify for the services at Homecare, at Continental Home Care. So let's dive deep. What is trust?
Yeah, so a trust is basically a mechanism to plan your estate and protect your property. I think that's like the simplest way that I can phrase it. And I think it's very interesting that you said when you were starting this conversation, people don't want to give up their homes. And I agree with you, and they should not give up their homes. And when we do a trust, the typical trust that helps qualify for Medicaid and protect your assets is an irrevocable asset protection trust. And with that trust, you do not give up all the control that is a common misconception.
Irrevocable.
Correct. And I'll explain what the elements of it that are irrevocable and why it protects you from creditors like Medicaid and helps you qualify for Medicaid, because everything that you will be putting into the trust will no longer count as yours for purposes of Medicaid. But for tax purposes, we could structure that it's still yours, right? For purposes of occupancy, lifetime rights, it's still going to be yours. Even for income, we can have it structured that the income is yours, right? And what's also super interesting and that most people don't know is that even though it's irrevocable, you can still change your mind about who the beneficiary upon your death will be. So you can decide
to change it.
Correct. You can no longer change it uncontrollably like you could today. For example, if you have a house, you can just decide to give it to me, right? Mm-hmm. But if you do an irrevocable trust and you don't mention my name as one of the class of beneficiaries there, you can no longer give it to that third party. But we usually say you could change your mind among any of your family members and a charitable institution, so that it's enough room and enough flexibility that you still have control over the property.
So if kids don't behave, I saw on TV one day.
Exactly. You still have to behave.
I saw on TV one day how I think it was in Fresh Meadows, there was a lady that got so pissed off at her kids. I guess they wouldn't take care of her. And she donated, I think it was $40 million worth of real estate assets to animal shelter.
Yeah, I heard about that.
I was watching that. I'm like, wow, the kids really got her pissed off. So for those kids that are watching, be aware that your family, well, first of all, a lot of times I would say in our community, right? Kids know clearly to what the parents own. So be very good to your parents. Watch out for them. Not only from the place of an exchange for real estate or assets. Just genuinely be good to your parents from a place of the one above that gave you the life, right? So let's continue. You're giving so much information to those that are listening right now. I hope they will take notes. Because irrevocable trust then would allow to make changes throughout the lifetime for those that creating the trust into the point where they could make decisions.
Correct.
Oleg, have you ever had anyone call you and say, I own 5 buildings. How do I qualify for home care? What do you do?
Well, we had a lot of phone calls of patients with the question that you've asked, but we are not a law firm. So we refer them to law firms. It's not a specific law firm, but we have Irina Yadgarov here who I have a pleasure to meet, and I've heard of her and known her from different podcasts and Facebook
Videos.
shorts that she's made, and
And Shul.
in Shul too. Yes, by the way, and I feel that Irina would be able to help our community and beyond with proper Medicaid planning. So it's not just hey, we will be doing a planning. It has to be done by a professional who knows, who specializes in that line of business, and I think Irina would be one of the best one in my opinion.
Thank you.
Oleg, what does it take to qualify for your services?
Well, there are many different pre-qualification processes, and the initial qualification process should be that a patient or potential patient should qualify. If it's, let's say, if we're talking about Medicaid, they should qualify for Medicaid, right? If they don't qualify for Medicaid, but they do have assets and they don't want to transfer their assets into a pool trust or a irrevocable trust and whatnot, and they just want to hire us as a private client-based agency. We do that too as a private pay. But a lot of patients that I've seen due to their mental and physical condition, and they were somehow able to qualify, and of course with help of attorneys and perhaps maybe family members try to assist them. And the majority of patients base here in New York is Medicaid-based population that receives home care. That's why Medicaid budget and expenditure has expanded so much that now Medicaid is actually cutting down on those services.
And
What do you mean by cutting down? What are you expecting to come soon?
Well, it's not as it used to be many years ago. You know, you have MLTCs, and they're actually doing the right thing. You know, they want to make sure that if a patient does not need or does not qualify for many hours of service,
They cut them down.
the nurse would perform an appropriate assessment, and they would cut those services down.
Have you witnessed people losing hours?
We have, but we have also witnessed that managed long-term care programs, or the nurse would go in and see that it's inappropriate for a patient to have, let's say, 3 days, 4 hours, or 5 days, 10 hours. So the nurse does an assessment. There is a proper way to do it, and they know how to do it to make sure that the patient gets exactly what they need.
Excellent.
And, yeah.
Excellent. So you mentioned earlier there is different types of programs. Is it like a cookie cutter, everybody qualifies for the same type of program, or there is multiple programs that exist?
It's not one program fits all. So every patient is an individual patient, and MLTC, Managed Long-Term Care Program, they have a criteria for qualifying patients. And I believe, in my opinion, it's a fair criteria. They do right by patients, whether it's reducing or decreasing hours. But they evaluate all patients that come their way to make sure that if the patient qualifies and requires service, they would authorize appropriate service hours.
I just want to mention a client-driven program, NHTZ, which can help qualify. I think a lot of our community needs to hear about this, for 24-hour care, which is like increasingly difficult to get. So it would permit for a 12 and 12 split shift. And it does require dementia or some sort of mental decline. So just for viewers to be aware of that.
Right. Well, basically, NHTD actually is not only for 12 and 12. It also depends on the amount of service hours that the patient needs.
Okay.
But they do actually approve that amount of hours that patient is actually in need. You know, it's this program itself was created to ensure that patients, those that want to stay in the community, they do actually stay in the community. And even if they were in a nursing home or are in a nursing home and they want to come back to the community, NHTD is the program that allows these patients
to bring them back,
to return back home.
When you mentioned earlier that there is some people coming back from nursing homes into their homes. Have you had cases where you were called and requested that there is a short period of time that you need to get a patient qualified because they're going from nursing home back to their home?
Well, the process, we are not in a position to speed up the process, but the process itself, it's a lengthy process. It's not an easy process, but if done right, it's a patient's choice program. Patient and patient's family members, they must want this program. They need to reach out to a regional resource development center and start from there, and they would be guided how to start and how to get the program approved, because it's a lengthy process, but it's doable. It's done. A lot of people get it approved.
I remember when my father was after surgery. I'm gonna just share my personal experience that I think it was a social worker from the hospital that told us that after the surgery he couldn't really come home unless he had the proper care. And I remember that very difficult moment where we were running around and waiting until it happens, because who wants to stay in the hospital and wait for your loved ones to be stuck there just because you don't have the proper care at home? So I think it's a very fine line when you need to have a person from the family who's going to be really in contact with the social workers in the hospital and the home care agency that gets connected through the hospitals, nursing homes. And I don't know if assisted livings are part of it as well, but you please correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, it's pretty straightforward. Let's say if the patient is in a nursing in a hospital and they are about to be discharged, right? Hospitals, they have contracts where there are CHAS, certified home healthcare organizations that have their representatives in the hospitals, and hospitals social worker or a discharge planner, they can coordinate with CHAS, with certified home healthcare companies to discharge, and it's done pretty quickly if everything is coordinated, timely, and of course efficiency is a key to a timely discharge from the hospital.
Oleg, let's just remind our listeners to how many boroughs are we part of?
We are providing services in 5 boroughs: Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, Bronx, and Staten Island.
So we're not limited to distance?
No.
Excellent. Irina, earlier we touched upon a very good keyword that I don't think our listeners, maybe some of them, didn't ever hear. What is pooled trust?
A pooled trust. So a pooled income trust, it's also an irrevocable trust, but it's very different from an asset trust because it is managed by a company. Its main use, its most common use, it's a supplemental needs trust, and only disabled individuals are eligible. But once a person is over 65 years old and retired, they, in most instances, are eligible as well. And the goal and the point of the pooled income trust in most instances is to shelter excess income from Medicaid so that you can qualify. Because just to take a step back, what do you need?
Do you mean rental income?
All income, all sources of income. So when we're talking about income in the context of Medicaid planning, it's going to be some sort of retirement income. It can be from Social Security. It could be from a union, pension, 401k, required minimum distribution, or rental income. So any of those sources of income will put you over the Medicaid eligibility threshold, right? Because Medicaid is a means-based resource. You can qualify if you have assets and income that meet their thresholds. But as a Medicaid planning attorney, we help individuals qualify for Medicaid by establishing trusts, right? So the first trust we spoke about.
So you're a one-stop shop.
Yes, absolutely. So the first trust we spoke about was the asset protection trust, because we have to get over the asset threshold. And now you asked me about the pooled income trust, which takes care of the income for eligibility purposes. So essentially anything over the Medicaid threshold, which is currently $1,800 for a single individual who's applying for Medicaid, again, over 65 or disabled, or a married couple, $2,400 is the max, right? But like you said, what if you have rental income? What if you have 401k distribution, union, whatever income it is?
What about stocks, bonds?
Investment income, absolutely.
Investment.
Any income.
So everything goes into trust.
The income goes into the pool trust and gets used for the Medicaid applicant. So you're using it. You're going to have all the bills paid by that trust.
Equals pool trust.
Correct. The excess income goes into the pool trust so that you can qualify for Medicaid. I just want to say something super important. The pool trust is something that you are going to establish only when and if you are already applying for Medicaid. It does not need to be done in advance, and in most instances, it should not be done, in advance. But Medicaid planning and estate planning, the asset protection trust that we were talking about earlier, it is so important to take steps to protect your assets well in advance of ever needing Medicaid, because as Oleg was saying, most clients are on Medicaid that the agency is servicing. And the reason for that is not just because Medicaid pays for it. One of the reasons for that is that people have to spend all their money to take care of home care or whatever medical care they need. And then they end up becoming Medicaid eligible because all the money's gone.
Correct.
So to make sure that the money doesn't go to pay for medical care, you want to be smart about your planning and take care of the trust planning. Because
so the state fully allowing you to do this?
100%, fully kosher. And people ask me because it sounds too good to be true. It's like having your cake and eating it too. You can have so much income, you can have multiple properties, and you can have Medicaid. Yes, because New York State permits it. So, for example, in Jersey, you actually cannot make use of a pooled income trust for Medicaid planning. You cannot shelter income that way. But in New York State, you can. But it is so important to plan in advance because, as many of you guys know, there's a 5-year look back before you can get nursing home paid by Medicaid when you engage in transfers, whether it's transferring to a trust or just gifting it to your children, right? And now there's going to be a 2.5-year look back period for home care. So let's take action.
Let's cover what are you expecting that is available right now that people should take advantage right now, right? So, Oleg, can I openly say that we are expecting for changes in 24 hours home care to be limited to being on the waiting list coming soon?
Well, the government always try to, they make changes, and we must follow the rules and regulations and whatever policies they release. And will there be changes? Of course, there will be. Expected, yes. When, I don't know. I'm not part of the government. But as Irina just mentioned, I feel that if done properly and in advance, prepare in advance, people will, I guess, benefit long term.
Speaking of prepare in advance, why do you both feel that people procrastinate? I mean, death is inevitable, right?
Yeah, but who wants to talk about it? Who wants to think about it? But I think a lot of people would be motivated by the fact that engaging in estate planning is really a tremendous help for the children. Many of the clients that we have walk through the door, I explain this is not really, for you, right? It's for your children because they get to inherit seamlessly without creditors like Medicaid, without having that money be spent on Medicaid, without a court process because trusts avoid that. So people procrastinate, tax returns are also filed late, death and taxes. People hate taking care of these things, but we're talking about changes and things becoming more and more constricted every year because the budgets are running dry. The federal government is not that interested in helping New York State, as we all know, like the political climate, what's going on. So the 2.5-year look back that has been enacted 2 years ago can be implemented any moment now. So it's very important, more important than ever, to do the planning because most of this planning gets grandfathered in. So if you do it early enough and you apply for Medicaid or just get yourself prepped, doesn't mean that you're, that you need to go on Medicaid when you're doing Medicaid planning. It's great estate planning. So to do it earlier, you're being proactive and you're being smart. And it's very important. Despite the fact that we don't want to do it, we don't want to think about it, it's super important for the kids.
How long does it take you to do the paperwork?
Typically, so if we're talking about like the asset protection and estate planning paperwork, typically if we're talking about real estate and assets, 2 to 3 weeks on my end. And then, of course, we have to coordinate with the client.
But like Oleg mentioned, they have to cooperate, right?
Yeah, and if we're talking about co-op owners, it's a lot longer because we have to deal with the co-op board, the co-op attorney, and that whole coordination process. So that's easily 3 to 6 months on average, right? And when we're talking about Medicaid and getting on Medicaid, you can attest to this better than I can. It's taking longer and longer. I have some cases that go on for a year. They get their retroactive approval. All my cases get approved, knock on wood. But it takes, with the government, everything takes, a long time. We do emergency home care applications, but that also just pool trust.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So for emergency Medicaid applications, it's basically somebody who has been either recently discharged from a hospital or is anticipated to be discharged from a skilled facility or something like that. And it's exactly what it sounds like. They need home care immediately. And so those apps are supposed to be approved very quickly, within 7 to 10 days. But even though the application may be approved, if my applicants, right, my clients need pool trusts because they have too much in income. And you cannot rush that process because it has to be approved through Albany, and that takes a minimum of 3 months. That's a minimum before I can even rush Medicaid to take a look at the application. So once that 90-day window passes, we could rush them. But I know home care agencies like yours, they can service with home care with the Medicaid ID number before the pool trust gets processed because they know that they'll recover retroactively from the state.
But don't they have to go through MLTC anyway?
Yes, but the applications get approved very quickly.
So for the record, everyone, I will just highlight that Irina Yadgarov is available to have consultation for each and every one of you that is looking to be responsible and really plan your future. So just for the record, you do not have to have Medicaid from the moment you plan your trust. It could be just planning, and then you could have it all organized, put it in your safe deposit box.
Yeah, 100%. So you want to start planning for your estate and for Medicaid planning, ideally 55 and up, ideally.
And you could apply.
Everybody is different, of course.
And you could apply later.
You could, hopefully, God willing, you'll be healthy as a horse and never need Medicaid, right? Like, 120, never need it. But this is an insurance. This is like part of taking care of risk
your future, right?
That unfortunately is a very high risk because the number one creditor for aging New Yorkers is nursing home Medicaid.
Nursing home is not my favorite place to send our elderly. And this is why me and Oleg constantly daydream about potentially, in a perfect world, having like the best assisted living facility for the community and for them to really, like, this is my dream, for them to live in a paradise. I don't know what it is, but...
Well, the paradise, I'm sorry, but the paradise is at home.
Yeah.
My suggestion is children, grandchildren,
take care.
Visit your parents, visit your grandparents. Come often, pay attention, skin color, the way they walk, the way they eat. Give them love, give them respect. They want you, they need you. Don't find excuses that you are busy. We're all busy.
Right.
But the time is limited. And I think we all should be conscious enough to just understand one thing, that many years ago, when we were young, these old men and women who are our mothers, fathers, grandparents, they took care of us.
Correct.
Give them love. Stop by. They don't need money from you. They don't need anything from you except come, give them a hug. Come with your grandchildren. Give them your time. Your time is very much of a value to them than if you would bring them money, diamonds and jewelry and whatnot. That's all useless for them. They need you. And don't just pass by their house or an apartment. Come. Even 5 minutes of your time a day would prolong their life. And that's what I've seen throughout many years of being in the home care business.
Lack of love.
Love, respect.
Attention.
Very much is needed.
Beautiful message.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. You stepped right in. See, he doesn't let me get into my daydreaming moments. He brings me right back. That's why we work well together. So, Irina, what would it cost someone?
Ooh.
Let's talk about money, right? Because anyone listening right now, they would say like, okay, so now you convinced me to call Irina and start planning.
Yeah, so I'll give
What
you
are we talking about numbers?
I'll give you ballpark because
prices?
everybody's obviously different. People have, different properties, different locations. I'll give you a ballpark. Right now, to do like an asset protection trust, you're looking at minimum $5,000-$6,000, and that's if you're going with a smaller firm, right? If you're going to a big law firm in Manhattan for the same services, you're going to pay $15,000. And you can verify that. Just, you should always, I hope everyone obviously consults with me, speaks with me, but my opinion is that when you're working in a complex field like law or medicine, home care, accounting, you always have to speak with more than one professional. See who you jive well with, see, what resonates, do your, and you should not base Medicaid planning on price because the value of what you're getting, it surpasses by miles, what you're paying for it. Because just think about it, right? You're paying a few $1,000s for a trust. What are you getting? First of all, even if you never need Medicaid, your kids inherit without a court process, you already paid that off because the court process, you have
probate.
Court fees and you have attorney's fees that are going to exceed, in most instances, the trust setting up fees, right? That's one. Two, potentially you salvaged the entire value of your multi-million-dollar property because you had the seichel, you had, the wherewithal, and you had the foresight to do the planning in advance. Because far too often, I'm sure Oleg gets calls far too often, после пожара, after
the
it's
fire.
too late.
Yeah.
Correct? After the person is advanced dementia, 90 years old, never wanted to, to relinquish any control, never wanted to have anybody involved, private, whatever. And that's, that's everybody's prerogative. Everybody's different. But I just want to press on how important it is to hire for important needs in your life a qualified professional, somebody who's in this field with taxes, with Medicaid, with real estate, with expertise focused on this field.
Correct.
I don't dabble in immigration, personally, very focused, know what I'm doing in this practice. So I think instead of looking at, what am I shelling out for, it's not the same product. You can hear it just by this conversation, how much nuance, everybody's different. Everybody has different variations within their trust. It's not an all for one. Medicaid changes their rules and regulations all the time. Trusts I used to use, I had to change because Medicaid no longer accepts that form. They want different language, right? So we keep up
Constantly
with these
changing.
things. Absolutely, it's not just here. Let me just
How do you keep
go
up?
over here, go over because that's my profession. That's what I take pride in. That's what I take joy from, and like you guys, I really enjoy helping my community. I love our community. And I really just wanted to give over information so that people know that you can plan for Medicaid. You can take care of your estate planning and do it cohesively and do it in the right way. So cost is absolutely always a cost, but I think what people get is it's not, you can't even compare it. The value that we add through our services is, it's not a
Excellent.
one.
Irina, if anyone calls you from this recording of this podcast, is there like a small consultation that could be
I always give
given?
I always give personal attention. So a phone consult is always free. 15, 20 minutes, whatever it really takes. And I give all the pricing customized on the call, but I don't, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, I am very busy, so I don't have any like free in-office time. We can definitely credit the cost of a consult to the services, but
if they become your client?
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
But again, I just want to give information. I'm really charitable about that. I don't, I don't want anything in return for that. It's just that, time is very limited in the office, so.
Excellent. Wow, there's so much information floating around in this room. I'm getting excited. The more we talk about it, the more I feel like it's coming out, right?
You're straight up, Olga. I can't believe you asked me about pricing, but I'm glad you did because I'm one of the attorneys that will give you, when you call, the pricing for what you
Right. Well, you've been amazing. Thank you, Irina.
Thank you.
And like Oleg said, I've been following you for years. And if you remember, you and I did a podcast recording when I first originally started recording at home on Zoom. Do you remember? I think it was like around COVID time.
Yeah.
And I forgot his name, Michael.
Yeah.
Michael, where you and I did the recording. I was actually not too comfortable to release that episode to my social media because I felt it was like not professionally done in such lavish studio like this.
There's no such thing as bad marketing, so
True. But I just want to make it formal for the record. Guys, everything you hear right now today with Irina and with Oleg, I want you guys to know that all of this costs their time and valuable efforts and, of course, money in the end of the day. So take advantage. Listen to all these episodes because we will be planning more episodes that will be coming out down the road in the future with different types of services and everything else that's coming our way. I'm very pleased to know that Irina is open to doing chesed, like a lot of my ladies that I'm part of, very tight community, lots of ladies in the community that are watching. If you guys have any questions, please drop them in the comment below. Irina and myself will be very happy to answer them. And if there is any questions for Oleg as the administrator of Continental Home Care, please also do not hesitate, drop them in the comments below. So we will continue. So Irina, why do you think co-ops do not allow from the first start, from the very beginning? Because I sell a lot of co-ops and I get a lot of phone calls where children, for example, want to buy a co-op for their parents and or parents want to buy for their children. Why do you think co-ops are not so open for it?
For the trust, you mean?
Yes, from the very beginning.
So I would say that the co-ops that do permit trust ownership do permit you purchasing through a trust, but the problem is getting a mortgage. So for people who have a mortgage and they want to purchase a co-op, it doesn't work because you would need bank permission. Because how do co-op purchases work? If you have a lender or bank involved with the mortgage, they have to take your co-op stock certificate with them back to the bank as collateral because that's...
Until it's paid off.
Correct. Once it's paid off, they give it back to you and then you can transfer your co-op to a trust. So the impediment is really one with the mortgages. And then two, there are some old school, archaic type of co-ops where they don't permit trust ownership ever, whether you're purchasing through a trust or you're transferring to a trust. And that is because they ultimately think it's a little bit harder to recover from a trust than it is from an individual. Their attorneys don't always feel comfortable with it. But I would say 80 to 90% of the co-ops in Queens and actually throughout New York State, most of them, the very vast majority, do permit transfers to a trust. It is just, it's time consuming to effectuate the transfers.
Have you witnessed a lot of people buying their real estate residential, whether it's single or multifamily homes or even buildings, on the name of the trust from the very beginning? And why do you think people don't do this from the moment they buy instead of transferring?
So I think they do. I don't think it's as common because people typically engage in trust planning when they already own real estate. And then, once they inherit the property or once they're transacting as trustees, they will sell and purchase through the trust, which is actually super important that you're asking this because a lot of people think I have an irrevocable trust, I can't sell. That's not true. You could sell through the trust. The trustee can sell. You could buy another residence or you can invest in a different way. It doesn't have to be real estate.
It could be a snowball effect.
Correct. Yes. So that money is not just locked in one form without, you being able to do anything with it. It is very flexible. But again, going back to the mortgages, it's tough to refinance when you have an irrevocable trust. You could take home equity, but the refi is difficult, and only like Quantic Bank and maybe one other bank will lend mortgage lending. That is, again, home equity is fine.
Oleg, how many total programs do you see that people can juggle, right? Like, how many programs there are out there that you could potentially think like, oh, that person based on their medical records could qualify after they get Medicaid approved? How many programs there are out there?
Well, it's not about how many programs are out there. It's how many, what actual patient needs. And it all goes individually based on the patient's need, and it's the qualification comes from or through the managed long-term care plan. Those plans, they have many bunch of different programs. If we're talking about home care is home care. You get personal care aid or a home health aid, but that all gets determined by the Medicaid plan, which so far they've been very attentive to patient actual needs. And
I just want to ask you something, if it's okay. So I heard that the personal care services, I hear that they're being cut down completely. Is that not? No, personal care meaning like help with like just groceries, or just when you don't have impairments with the ADLs, when you just need kind of like a homekeeper.
There are a few conditions were added just recently for a person now to get qualification for a home care service in general. But again, that all goes into qualification process, and that gets determined by a Medicaid long-term care program. But we will see how it plays out. But whatever they was added, I think makes sense. And those patients that require home care, I believe, based on nurses' assessments, they qualify for whatever they get.
Right. Thank you.
Irina, anything else you want to add to our listeners that they should hear from you as a professional? Oleg was very, very motivated to have you in the room. So it's your moment to shine.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Actually, I just want to answer questions that you may have. I think that one of the things I really wanted to achieve was to just dispel the common misconceptions surrounding Medicaid, surrounding irrevocable trusts, that you could plan and achieve your goal, if that is to have Medicaid despite higher asset and income limits.
So if you don't mind, I would ask you a question. Pooled income trust. Can you just explain to the public what can be paid from it, so that people know that it's not that monies they go in and now they're not able to.
Yeah, no, actually, and there's definitely pooled trust companies that will give you a credit card so that and it's linked to your account. It has to be spent on your bills only. It's only for the disabled individual, the Medicaid applicant, right? It's not, you can't give an envelope at a yeshiva or a wedding as a gift, right? You can't use that pooled trust for any charitable gifts. You can't use it to travel with a buddy, meaning it won't pay for their ticket. It'll pay for your flight. It'll pay for your hotel stay. Even if your buddy's with you, that's fine. It'll pay for any and all of you, anything that you will use. And that includes jewelry, if you're going to wear it. It includes a television, right? It includes anything you can think of that you would purchase and use. It's just the two no-nos are gifts and contraband. That's it. Like tobacco, alcohol, obviously, contraband. But that's it. You could use it for anything and everything. And I think you asked that question because it's very important to make the viewers aware that if you don't use what's in the pooled trust, which again is very different from the asset protection irrevocable trust, right, where we're putting assets. If you don't use it, you lose it, meaning you can accumulate it throughout your lifetime. You can use it throughout your lifetime. But if you die and there's a balance there, it goes to other disabled beneficiaries on the state. It does not go to your relatives. That's the pooled income trust where you're putting the excess income. Why do you look confused?
Why? Oh my goodness.
Why do you look confused?
Wow, because I have clients that own multi-million-dollar buildings.
Those
are different.
That's the asset protection trust. Those are protected. That the whole goal is to protect. No one's touching that. The income from the multi-million-dollar properties, depending on how we structured the trust. Remember, like the beginnings of this conversation, we can either have it go to you, and then if you need Medicaid, you'll have to put it in the pooled income trust and use it from there. But the only reason you would do that is if you're spending it on yourself, or if you don't need all that income from those multi-million-dollar income-producing properties. We could do multiple trusts. We could do some that give you the income directly, some that freeze it in the trust, right? So you don't have to have such a big excess going into the pooled income trust. So you have to do it in a smart way where...
Can you invest that money?
From the pooled trust? No. From the asset protection trust? Absolutely.
So if a person, let's say, into stocks and they
Yeah.
want to trade stocks. They transferred all their assets to
Into the asset trust.
right.
Yeah.
And all they want to do is use that money and just stay at home and just, trade stocks. Can they do that?
So the trustee would have to give the direction for the trade or like sign off on it. But absolutely. And then the income from those investments, depending on your personal circumstance, would either go to you and maybe to the pool trust if you have Medicaid, right? For you to have Medicaid, or it will be stuck in the trust for reinvestment and for your kids or for your kids, right? It just can't go to you because you don't want it available to you because you don't need it, you don't use it. So depending on your personal situation, we structure the asset protection trust in a way that makes sense with the goal to, when you're 85, are you going to use this income? And by the way, our trusts have the flexibility to turn off and on the income spigot to keep it in the trust, take it out of the trust. So that's another plug for you have to have like a seasoned attorney to really have like all these tools in their trust bucket.
Have you had clients that make changes all the time?
So because I've been doing this for so long now, there's definitely a lot that I see with people changing things, people passing away. Fortunately, really not too many changes. But yeah, people change, especially they'll elect to change beneficiaries. That happens a lot. Like initially they wanted everything to go to their kids, but now they want to leave some to their grandchildren. So I've seen that. And you have to do that in a smart way too, because you never want to leave. Like when you pass away, you don't want a minor to inherit directly. It raises its own complexities because then you're kind of screwing over the trustee. You put them in an uncomfortable situation if they want to sell the piece of real estate, but that you can't buy out a minor. You need guardianship. You don't want to deal with that. That's why you also have to have like a knowledgeable attorney to like plan for this stuff, or how to properly give it to the grandkids,
Have you had any cases that parents want to punish children for misbehavior and put the trust under the name of their grandkids?
It's a good question. I've seen all kinds of things. I can't remember
I've
that
seen it.
exactly.
That's why I'm asking
You've seen
you.
it? I've seen all kinds of things like, I don't want this kid to have anything, but that usually like I see off the bat.
I've seen a case when the
I've
mother
seen
was
kids-
pissed at her kids because they weren't taking care of her and they didn't actually marry the right spouse.
I've seen things like, this person can't be the trustee anymore because they're in prison. So like they're
Oh,
so like we had to like
so what do you do in that case?
Well, so we always have like successor trustees in line, and then anybody who's a beneficiary also has standing to become a trustee. But basically, there's flexibility. There's things built into the trust to make sure you have step A, B, C, and D.
Question.
Wow.
Who can and cannot be a manager of the trust?
You like the trustee, right? Because that's really essentially what the trustee's role is. Such a good question. Okay, so again, to a little bit of the nitty gritty, you can name your kids as trustees only initially, only once off the bat. So if you didn't name your children in the trust initially and you need to sub out or get rid of a trustee, you cannot then appoint another person who, according to the IRS, is under your control. That would be a child, a spouse. You generally, off the bat, do not name a spouse as a trustee because it's too available to you, and also the spouse may need to in the future qualify for Medicaid. So for an irrevocable trust, my practice is not to name the spouse as a trustee. And convicted felons cannot serve as trustees, but I think there was actually like a recent law change in New York that mitigated some of that. I have to like look into that and get back to you because it's a recent change and I forgot exactly what it was, but I think it made certain felons still eligible, like depending on what class it is or something like that. But other than that, people ask a lot about hiring maybe professional trustees. The problem with that is unless you're very wealthy, you have to pay them. So like if you want to name your attorney or your accountant, your trustee, they're going to charge. Yeah.
I've seen attorneys being appointed.
Right. Well, most of the time, we see children, siblings, nieces, nephews, those are your typical trustees, whoever has a good relationship with you, whoever's responsible.
Do you have to be able to trust them, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because why? They can't do something like sell it behind your back legally, but because their signature, it's like you gave them a key to your safe deposit box. Yeah, you could sue for it and get it back, but who wants to deal with that? So you want to pick a person that you have a good relationship with. If people have a few children, sometimes they're not sure like which one, and they don't want to like offend one of them.
How do you manage that?
It's actually different. So some attorneys prefer to have all kids always be co-trustees. I actually don't like that. I prefer either one or two or in succession, because administratively I feel like it's difficult when they're all trustees, because if you want to sell a piece of property and not everybody's available, you can't get all the signatures, you know. But it's really up to the client. It depends on their relationship with their family. It depends on what makes sense for them. So, but generally, it's a close person that you do have trust in. If you don't have that person in your life, which I see a lot, unfortunately, it's really tough.
So for Medicaid planning,
Correct.
should be an irrevocable trust.
Right, because the irrevocable trust, unlike the revocable trust, has that element of protection against creditors, and it no longer can. So what are you relinquishing, right? Why is it irrevocable? Because I think we only touched on all the flexibility and all the good stuff you could have with it, right? So what's kind of like, what are you losing? You're losing
With an irrevocable.
with an irrevocable trust, you're losing access to the money from that property. So for example, if we're transferring a piece of real estate into the trust, if the trustee sells the house, right, and there's money that's coming in, we cannot, if the trustee ever gives you that money, as the person who set up the trust, if the trustee writes a check to you or pays for your expenses from the trust, you lost the protection against creditors. That's what you're giving up. And that's why I said 55 and up is ideal planning, because you're much more comfortable giving that up, because you know you're not, right? When we're younger, we may need it to supplement our retirement. We may need the cash. But the older you are, the more you know you're not going to sell your primary residence. You're not going to even sell your investment properties to go live off them. You know your retirement income. You know what you're living off. You're comfortable locking it up in the trust. But again, locking up, the trustee can sell it, buy you another property, either to live or to get investment income.
Within the trust.
Correct. And you could take the money out for the children. You just can't do it for mom and dad, right? The ones who are planning the estate. Is that clear? I just want to make sure that you got
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, let's make it clear. What's the revocable trust for?
Revocable trust. So the revocable and irrevocable trust, they will both avoid probate, so that when a person passes away, their kids get it automatically without a court process. Because again, whether or not you have a will, it necessitates a court process. Surrogate's court, a few months, a few $1,000s at least, time, especially if you have minor, it's a headache. It could take years. It could take a lot of money.
Plus, they need to have money to maintain while it's going through probate process.
Yes, especially with co-ops, right? Because who's paying the maintenance?
Correct.
And who's dealing with all of that? And you have multiple properties in multiple states. You have to go through ancillary probate in those states. So if you have like condo in Florida, you have to go through your probate in New York, hire a Florida lawyer, Florida licensed attorney to go through that ancillary probate there. But if you put all your properties, into your trust or trusts, they'll avoid that. So the revocable trust is great for younger individuals. Under 55, typically, people with multiple properties in various states, business owners, because certain businesses, professional business owners, they can't just transfer a professional corporation into a trust. You have to be professionally licensed to hold that corporate license, right? Like in order to hold your corporation, medical professionals, dentists, lawyers, we can't just have an irrevocable trust own our S Corp, right? Or our PLLC, whatever it is. So for certain people, obviously revocable trust makes sense. But for the older population, for most of the older population, typically the irrevocable trust makes sense. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution, obviously, but it makes sense in a lot of cases.
How many?
But people are afraid to set up those irrevocable trusts because they feel that they lose control of all of their assets.
Right. So we touched a little bit about that. They could still change the trustee. They could change the beneficiary. What they lost is the ability to put that money in their pocket and spend it on themselves. Yes. And you have to pick what's important to you.
Correct.
So, it's your choice at the end of the day. If you don't protect it, you just have to be aware a lot of it may be spent, if not all of it, on medical care. And if that's okay, that's okay. There's some people who are perfectly fine with that.
Right. So, and that takes us back to Medicaid planning for home care.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so 5 years look back for nursing home, 2.5 years look back for home care.
Yeah. almost.
But is it already active?
Not yet.
Not yet.
It's the law. The law was passed.
The law was passed,
but
wasn't
it's not. Yeah,
implemented yet.
it's not implemented.
But
On standby.
people should think in advance and prepare themselves in
To
advance.
apply.
Nursing home look back used to be years ago, 2.5 also. And it was proposed years ago that it should go to 10 years. So like we see a trend, right? Because again, like less money in the state, constricting eligibility. So take advantage of planning before it's more constricted.
Right. And care for your loved ones at home while they're still with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's probably the
Irina,
most important message for today.
how many types of different trusts you work with and they exist?
So every trust you could lump into one of two categories. It's either going to be revocable or irrevocable. And then within those, there's so many categories because there's certain irrevocable trusts that we do to get it out of your taxable estate. That's for very wealthy individuals. Per person over 15 million on the federal level, 30 million husband and wife. So for them, we do an irrevocable trust, but it gets certain assets out of their taxable estate because the estate tax is very high. And then there's also supplemental or special needs trusts for disabled individuals. We spoke about a pool trust. There's other types of supplemental needs trusts. Sometimes they're used to keep your benefits like Medicaid in the context of a personal injury settlement. So a lot of my calls are, I got a workers' comp award or a personal injury award, and now I'm going to lose my Medicaid. What do I do? Or SSI. So in certain instances, we can use pool trusts to maintain their Medicaid and other benefits.
If anyone, for example, is on Medicaid, getting home care services, God forbid they walk down the street, they fell down,
Yeah.
they started some kind of litigation process, they won the settlement, right? And now they are awarded for $1 million.
Yeah.
So you could still turn this money from the settlement into the trust?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it depends, obviously, how it's very complicated, very nuanced. But yes, we can continue Medicaid, and it would depend on the strategy of how we do it, whether it's through a trust or through some different mechanism, would depend on the personal circumstances of the individual getting the award. It's like very nuanced and very complicated depending on age, depending on their reliance on the Medicaid, depending on the amount of the award, depending on what they want to use the award for, depending on their family composition. So I have to evaluate all these factors to give them the actual advice of what roads they can take, what consequences these roads would have. And they could, in most instances, still continue receiving their benefits. Sometimes they may not want to because they would sometimes prefer to take that millions, spend it, maybe do some sort of estate planning with it. Because if you're talking about a substantial enough award, it may not make sense to keep a government benefit. In some cases, it does. So that's one of the elements we take into consideration.
So technically, they could still transfer their assets into trust, and they could still manage everything that they need to manage.
Yeah.
It looks like on an individual basis. All of this is individually.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So any more questions that we want to float right now
Well, I think
during this recording?
I believe we've covered a lot. And again, the main message is, I guess I'm going to repeat myself, to care for your loved ones. Yes, Continental Home Care is always here for you. We will be able to provide you, qualified home health aides, personal care aides. Our nurses will be coming to you. So we'll take care of you from a home care perspective.
Yeah.
Right? But
We cannot give you the love, right?
Part of caring for your loved ones is making sure we tell mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, uncle, aunt, hey, you have Medicaid, but you own a house. Did you know that we're not going to inherit it, right? Because that's what they would want. They wouldn't want the state to take it. Part of taking care of your loved ones is explaining much of the information
So is it part
that
of
we
the
went
deal?
through.
Is it in writing?
What do you mean?
Like when you prepare a trust,
Yeah.
like is it making them obligated? Because a lot of times I hear, right, where the trustee says, it is my obligation to my loved one. Can you?
So a trustee has fiduciary obligation. They have to just carry out the terms of the trust, which oftentimes doesn't mean that they don't have to do anything, right? If it's just a house, you're living there, you're not selling it during your lifetime, the trustee just kind of hangs around. And when the person passes away, it is their obligation to distribute it in the manner that's set forth in the trust by the person who set up the trust, right? By mom, dad, whatever. However they wanted it to be distributed, they have to distribute it pursuant to the trust terms. Yeah.
We have to make sure that our parents are not lonely. Our grandparents are not lonely.
For sure.
Yeah. We're going to spend a lot of time with our family. Wishing everybody Shana Tova.
Absolutely.
Health,
Yeah.
happiness.
Health,
Absolutely.
wealth,
Very nice.
prosperity. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. I
Well, we
guess.
want to wish everybody a very happy, healthy, and beautiful Rosh Hashanah. The holidays are coming up. We purposely squeezed that episode right now, right before the holidays.
New Year's resolution.
Yes, New Year's resolution, because we do know that you guys are listening very carefully. Maybe it's not hitting everyone right here, right off the bat, from the very beginning, that you want to make that commitment to do the right thing for your preparations and the future, because it is a commitment. However, there is all services available, and the reason why we do this episodes and why I personally decided to have this podcast recordings is to bring the services to our community and our audience. Anything that you guys thinking that you need, if we didn't produce yet, drop it in comments below. I am totally open to hearing your advice, suggestions, and conversations. Totally open to giving you the guidance into the sphere of the home care services, because that's what we do right now. And Irina Yadgarov, as an attorney, she's always here for you to guide you through the process. I'm going to ask these two wonderful individuals one last words of, Oleg, what do you do in your spare time? How do you take the time for yourself? I know how busy you are, and you're very involved in the community. What do you do to really keep going? On a personal note, what advice would you give to anyone listening to you right now who is in a sandwich position or maybe younger?
I've seen it many times where children and grandchildren did not visit their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's too late, they were crying. They were upset with themselves. Why didn't I stop by? Why didn't I call? Why didn't I allocate my time? I was busy making money. I was busy building and whatnot. But unfortunately, I did not come and hug my mom, or I did not come and hug my father, or brought kids to them. And these are very touching moments to my heart. And that's why I always tell, when I have an opportunity to speak, that it's not all about money. It's about giving your love back, what you received when you were a child. And it's, I feel that it's our obligation. Yes, we live in a free country, as they call it, right? But it's our obligation to care for our loved ones. It's not the home health care. Yes, Continental Home Care would be able to send you a good home health aid and whatnot, but your love, your warmth, your attention to your parents, take them for a walk, take them to a restaurant, just come and sit and talk to them, give them 5 minutes of your time, please. It prolongs their life. It's better than any medication. A person sitting home without anyone, you can go crazy. Mm-hmm. Call your mom, call your dad, send your children there, send them something. It's just involved. And I've seen it where those that understood the importance of caring for their parents, in my opinion, they're
blessed.
Blessing is one thing. We have a fifth commandment. Respect, honor your mother and your father, right? So honor is not only just a word honor. You have to, words, actions, they speak louder than words. Mm-hmm. So our actions, we must make sure by, and actually that's going to be by example. Whatever we do to our parents, our kids will do to us.
Repay back.
So it's our time to repay. And repay back with time, attention, attentiveness, love, care, responsibility. So let's be responsible for our parents, for our loved ones. And Shana Tova Umetuka to all of you guys.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Irina, you want to drop a few words to conclude?
I just want to say that was really meaningful. I miss my grandparents so very much. They had great home care too, but their children, my mom and my uncle, my aunt, they were always there. They took care of them. We were always there. I used to live with my grandparents actually for a period of 5 years. It's a really special experience. It's a real blessing to have had that opportunity. I miss them tremendously. They were amazing. But you're right. It's an opportunity that we're not going to have forever, to be able to respect and love our parents. And my mom is an incredible woman. She picks up my children from school every day. You know, she helps a tremendous, tremendous amount. My father and I are not so close. He lives in Moscow. But yeah, it's so important and such a special time that we have with our parents that's limited, that I thank you for that message, because it really resonates. And I'm going to be replaying it and be extra careful to give even more kavod and to spend more precious private time with my loved ones.
Yeah,
That was beautiful. Thank you guys both very, very much for your time, for your knowledge, for your experience. And again, I want to go back to our audience and remind them, if they do have any questions, please drop them in the comments below. Irina's information will be also available in the comments. And if anyone has any questions, just reminding you that do not wait until your parents will be falling apart and they not will be available to walk up and down the stairs on their own. And definitely the state would like to have home care services dedicated and given to everyone, because it is costing the state less money. Is that correct? It's costing the state less money. So thank God we are trying to avoid nursing homes, right? We're trying to avoid assisted livings. I personally don't know anyone, thank God, that is in that kind of state. But yes, the services are available. Do not hesitate. Don't be shy. The phone call is just a way. And we are always here for you. Again, Shana Tova, happy holidays, and I wish everybody to be inscribed in the book of life.
Amen.
Thank you.